Hi, and welcome to Are You Done Yet? The podcast about your project and work management challenges. I'm Mike Taylor with Innovative E, and as always, I have with me Bryan Quick.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us again on Are You Done Yet?
Hey,
So,
Bryan.
Mike, no,
Go.
you.
Well, it looks like you got some interesting background there. Looks like maybe a Ford of some kind.
Yeah, so we had the opportunity to get together for the first time in person in a long time since, maybe late summer. And you came up to St. Augustine, where I live, and we went kind of walking around town a little bit, met with some other colleagues, and right behind me, I have the Caso de San Marcos, Castillo de San Marcos, which is the fort that's in St. Augustine that we walked around.
Right.
Yeah, and it occurred to me that obviously project management has been around for centuries.
Obviously.
St. Augustine's the oldest city in the country. And somebody had a project plan. Maybe it was written down on a piece of paper or whatever, when the Spanish built this fort, but there was a plan to do that.
Yeah,
And
had to be, right? A lot of different pieces to put all that together, and it survived 450 years. So,
right. So it's a monument to project management, as a practice that's evolved over the years.
Sure.
And it occurred to me that, the latest trends in project management, which we're going to talk about, we have been talking about, are just really an evolution of that. So let's talk about what the latest trends are in the industry that we see and what we're hearing from customers. And maybe for some of you folks out there that are thinking about or analyzing your current journey in project and work management, that'll help spark some ideas about what other folks are doing.
Right. Yeah. So there's a bunch of different trends and things that are going on. There's collaboration. We'll come back to that in a second. One of the things that's a big trend these days is there's a big push towards doing things that are much more agile, using these more modernistic approaches towards less waterfall type things, which is great. At the end of the day, I think a lot of people who've been in project management for a long time see and embrace that, because to a certain extent, most complex projects tend to have some elements of waterfall and Agile in it. I mean, certainly they didn't have, when they built that fort, they didn't have 10,000 people sitting around waiting for somebody to lay that first brick and then somebody else comes in and just the second thing, right? I mean, there was a plan. So, but there was probably a lot of very ad hoc communications going on and those kind of things. So, but one of the things that I think that it's kind of emerging, and really in the last year we've had customers talk about this, is the even more. There's always been a huge emphasis on collaboration, right? But in the past, sometimes collaboration was easy to do because you could just, you and I be in the same office, or you'd be in the next cube, or I could catch you at the water cooler, right? If we're all co-located, and say, "Hey, Bryan, what about this piece?" Right?
Right.
What's happened with this forced virtualization that there's been, all kinds of talk. We've talked about it before. Is the fact that collaboration it's been forced to be more digital. So the digital collaboration aspects of project management have emerged as a really core tenet and a critical piece of it. And we've had customers tell us that without things like Teams in place when they had to move virtual, they would have struggled mightily. There was a lot of challenges as it was, but they had the ability to really, the term we've heard many times over is, Teams and the collaboration aspects of these things are game changers in terms of being able to stay in touch and everything. But the interesting piece about that is, and I think that's one of the things that we'll talk a little bit more about today, is now people are taking that beyond just, hey, it's great to be able to have a meeting like we're having right now on Teams. We can have places to store files and do those kind of things, but really starting to think about, well, how can we really make the work management experience much more cohesive? So it's not just about creating a channel or just about having a team to do a certain thing.
Right. Those are excellent points. And, I think about kind of where I've come in my career in terms of project portfolio management since I've been involved in it. The practice has always been about centralizing the data, right? At the core, so so that you could basically, you don't have your project schedules that are being worked on from your various PMs, and your various customers or internal projects, whatever that case may be. They don't exist on their own in a vacuum. Basically, what you want to try to do is put them into a central system. Once they're in a central system, some things become possible. Reporting, centralized task management,
resource aggregation,
resource aggregation, some sort of workflow or intake process that's organized and has governance to it. So that's what PPM has been about.
Absolutely.
What's really been the focus, and I guess I'll expand on that a little bit by saying, and so what folks have done, what companies have done, is they've gone out and picked whatever project portfolio management system best fits their need, and they've implemented it, let's say.
Yep.
Those needs haven't changed.
Right.
But the fact is that with the technologies like Teams that are becoming more common, there's been more cloud adoption, there's been more Office 365 adoption, and with COVID-19 and the work from home scenario, everybody's got Microsoft Teams now, or some competing product on another platform. And what they're trying to do is take that project management, that portfolio management, instead of having a separate tool, pull it into Teams. And because that's where everybody is, that's where everybody's doing things, that's where, more and more, you and I are in Teams all the time. And I pop out of Teams to go to email. It's completely opposite the way it used to be.
Yeah,
but those needs haven't changed, Mike. They still need intake and demand management. They still need risk and issue management. They still need to figure out if they're doing the right projects or not just executing on them. But at the core, projects are about getting work done.
Right.
So it makes total sense that people are looking at, okay, I've got this collaboration solution that I already pay for, that I'm already rolling out. Why can't I do my project management in there? Why can't I get my projects done there?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And some of the discussions we're having with clients is like we said, it's getting deeper than just using Teams as yet another interface to launch into different areas, because you can plug things in there, right? And you can load things on they call it the left rail. But how do you really start to think about it as a unifying experience? And that's where there's a little extra capabilities that you can add and things that you can do to make it much more interesting. And one of the facilitating components of that is the fact that Microsoft is making this, well, they've made a move towards the Power Platform. We've talked a lot about that. And you have what was the CDS and is now called the Dataverse, which becomes the central repository for all common elements of data and new things that you put in there. So one of the things that we know people are exploring and we're exploring is ways to do that, so that when you go into Teams, it's not just like a different interface and you click over to go to this application or that application. You really start to do all of your management in one area. All of your work stays in that environment, and and you don't have to think about going to these different things. And in certain cases, you can make some modifications and do some things where it makes it ubiquitous. You don't even necessarily know. So like issues and risk, we talked about that. We've done some work with teams where we've talked about this in a different podcast, where we've extended it to with the Power Platform, and people can go in, and instead of having to go launch from Teams or from just from your browser or whatever, your project web app or project for the web, and going and saying, well, I need to go into this project. I'm a project manager. I have some issues. I got to go open the project. I got to go in. I got to log my issues or risk or update them there. I happen to be managing 6 projects, and my manager, the portfolio manager, has 10 people like me. So there's 60 or 100 projects out there. There's no central place to go look at all this and even work with the data. What you can do with Teams and use it and extending it with Power Platform is you can actually pull all that into by putting it into the Dataverse. You can pull it all into a central location, and now you can look at it based on your security trimmings. So for me, I'd see just my 6 projects. For you, if you're my manager and you've got 10 of me, you'd see all 60 projects from all of my peers and myself. And you can actually if it's configured this way, you can actually go in and make these modifications in a central grid in a Power App, which if you think about it, this is the kind of thing customers are coming back and telling us they really want to do. I don't have to care. I don't care where that data lies, right? And I don't have to go modify it in those locations. And think about the savings. So there's 10, me and 9 peers all doing this, and it's saving me, maybe an hour a week because I don't have to go hunt for things, and it's saving you an hour a week, and it's saving my other 9 peers an hour a week. So there's 10 or 11 hours a week right there that I can focus on. You talked a little bit about at the beginning of the episode, people, you didn't use this term, but it's basically what project management has been about. A big part of project management over the years, we talked a lot about this, is chasing information, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And so we get that hour back where we're not just chasing and aggregating information collaboratively around issues and risks, but we've got it back. The stuff is updated, in the centralized grid. And now we can focus on doing the aspects of project management that make the big difference, which is working the human aspects, working the issue, working the actual task issues or whatever they are. So it really is, you talk about game changing, that's just one example of it. And we've had customers telling us they're looking for those kinds of improvements to make across industries. So I had one customer who's talking to us not long ago, that they have, I think they have 7,500 project managers. And I don't know how many projects that represents, right? So you start thinking about, in something as simple as issues and risk, if they can save an hour for 7,500 project managers every week, what kind of additional productivity and it's not about necessarily the dollars, it's about what you can do with that time and what value that brings to the organization. So it's really huge.
7,500 project managers. That's a lot of donuts.
That is a lot of donuts, a lot of blue shirts.
Yeah, a lot of blue shirts.
As we both wearing our blue shirts.
What is it about the blue shirt and the project manager? I don't know. It's just
khakis
and a blue shirt. I used to have a blog called The Blue Shirt. Yeah,
I know. That's awesome.
So we're not trying to turn Teams into a project portfolio management, because Teams is not a project portfolio management system. It's a collaboration platform, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So, but where PPM solutions have fallen short a lot of times in the past is in the collaboration. Yeah, they're always like a separate place you have to go to do stuff.
It's almost like an afterthought, right? It's like they think about the PPM, here's how we do this, or even Agile tools are built around, here's how you get your storyboards in and you work all the, everything that's in there, your Kanban. And by the way, we need to collaborate, so we need a space to talk over here, right?
It almost like makes the doing of the project kind of a second class citizen to the reporting or to the oversight or to the workflow that you had to go through to create the project and get it in. And then once you're doing it and executing it, the PPM system really isn't offering anything.
Right. It's almost like that fort behind you, right? If the Spanish that built that fort had decided they were going to bring a bunch of people together and they were going to contract some French and some English and other people to help them or whatever, which wouldn't have happened, right? They were enemies at the time. But they bring them all together and they have this great plan, like you said, and they have it written down or whatever, and then they go to talk and they're all speaking different languages. They don't have a good way to collaborate. That would have been, oh, well, we should have thought of that.
Yeah. And Microsoft's PPM solutions, Project Server and Project Online, they really tried, and I think they did a little better at the collaboration aspect because they basically leveraged SharePoint as an underpinning,
right,
and a platform. And that's always been a pro. That's always been something that we've talked about and people have got benefit from.
Yep.
I think this is really interesting because it takes it to a whole nother level.
It does.
Instead of making your PPM into a collaborative solution, and it basically makes your collaboration platform into a PPM.
Right.
For those customers that want a PPM.
And it makes the different elements or the different types of roles that you have much easier to accommodate, right? Because not everyone, Project did a pretty good job of, Project Online, and before that Project Server, of being able to have a couple, 3 different types of roles, primarily your project manager and your team member, and they had different ways to address that. This allows you potentially to scale that out to all kinds of different users. You could have 4, 5, 6 different types of roles that need to access different kinds of information. And you just make it ubiquitous to go collaborate here. Everybody does it the same way, but based on your security and what you need, you see a little bit of what it is that you need to work with. And of course, things like Power BI become a big part of that as well, and what information surface to you.
So having conversations with customers recently has been really interesting and revealing, and we've had some internal conversations about what we're hearing. And just let me bring up a couple of examples. So some customers want to take their project online tenant, which they currently have, and they want to make it more collaborative and pull it into Teams. So that project online tenant has, your SharePoint team websites, and it basically exists in a browser in a URL. Well, how we're addressing that and helping them, it kind of depends on how much they want to be in Teams. But on a basic level, entirely Project Online and Project Web App, if you're familiar with the term PWA, can exist entirely within Teams. That's a basic function of Teams, is you can pull in websites and make them a tab, so make them completely part of Teams. The other thing is that with Power BI, of course, that can be another tab in your Teams channel. So you've got PWA and your reporting. Where the real kind of decisions come in, where it's really situational, is do I stop using the SharePoint team websites and start using Teams for my documents instead of putting them out on SharePoint? And that's really an organizational decision. At the core, Teams document management is SharePoint anyway, right?
Right.
But it's really about, do you want to keep that project team website as a destination, or do you want to make the Teams channel more of a destination for information? And you can also, if you're doing the task management or the time sheeting aspect of Project Online, you can pull that into the channel too, and just deep link right to that. So it feels like the people that are logging the time, that are updating the status, are just doing it from the Teams channel. They don't have another place they need to go to do that.
Yeah.
So at a basic level, if you're an existing Project Online customer and you want to do more with Teams to amp up your collaboration on your projects, those are the kind of things that are possible and that we can talk about at a basic level.
Absolutely. Yeah, that you're right. There's people make the choices to go either direction. I think in the future, more and more people are going to be putting more of the full collaboration effort into Teams.
Right.
Because
I think so too.
The more you go that route, the more flexibility you end up ultimately having. It may feel a little strange right now to do that, but ultimately you're going to have more and more flexibility, and you're going to be moving towards future state for where Microsoft's going with, because everything's going to be Teams and Power Platform in the future.
Right. Here's the other thing: is if you're a new customer and you just want to have better project management practices and better collaboration on your projects, and you still haven't centralized your projects at all yet, maybe you're using Excel or you're using some other cloud tool available out there to do project management. This is an entirely different conversation, right? Than it would have been a year ago, because we would have said, well, here's Project Online, here's your, here's the way that you take the next step. But now it's not really, there's a little bit of a pause on our part, because we need to figure out whether or not we should just be using Teams as the collaboration hub, and maybe even not using Project Online and PWA at all, because there's some other options. Right. And that's what really has changed the conversation into being a Teams first conversation, not a how do I do this in Teams, or how do I do PPM in Teams. It's basically I know I have Teams, I want to start there. Right. So what these customers are doing is they're going and they're looking at Planner and they're saying, well, this sort of looks like project management. It's tasks. I kind of like the Kanban board, and I like that I can move stuff around. but it's not. But then they call us and they're saying, but it doesn't do scheduling. And we're like, well, yeah, it does. That's right. It doesn't. It doesn't have dependencies. It doesn't. You can't predict your end dates. It's like a nice task management system.
Right. It's very graphical. It's easy to use. We use it.
Yeah.
But it, like you said, it's not for project management when you need to start working with the task dependencies, any kind of resourcing other than just having somebody assigned to it. There's no resource aggregation and decrement of resource availability for future look and all that kind of stuff, or assignments or any of that stuff, and who's allowed to be assigned to what task or project or whatever.
So several customers, it's like, well, yeah, we tried that and it's nice, but it's not enough.
Right.
So that's where Project for the Web comes in play. And we've had a lot of conversation about that on the podcast, and we've done demonstrations in the past. It is Microsoft Project kind of reinvented for browser centric, and it fits right into Teams. It's like right in there. So we like that option a lot better for people that want to centralize their projects. And like you said before, it goes into the Dataverse being their common repository behind a lot of these cloud workloads. It started with Dynamics, and then it moved into these other workloads like Project for the Web. They leverage the Dataverse. So that's the common reporting database that we're going to use in these scenarios. So you've got Teams, you're hyped on collaboration, you've got a scheduling engine in there. And really, Microsoft hasn't built the rest of the PPM stuff to surround it if you need it. So that's where we've been able to augment the solution with our own IP and with some creativity around how do we make Teams into a full project management solution for enterprises, for organizations. And the conversation is like about how mature are you? What do you need to do? What do you need to do next? Do you want to do risk and issue management?
Right.
Okay. So what our app basically provisions the risk list, the issues list automatically with the channel. As soon as you submit your project request, it goes through your workflow, whatever you want your workflow to be. And then you can log issues and risks right from the chat, like you were saying. So cool. Escalate it from a chat. So now we've got project management, we've got centralized data, we've got reporting with Power BI, and we've got risk and issue management.
Right. Yep. And you can do that with the interesting piece is we can do that with Project for the Web, Project Online. We can take some of the tools that we're working with a lot of customers on, and one of our key partners, Edison, and we can put that into the same construct. So it creates a unified work management experience. So if you're using Edison projects, you can do exactly the same thing. And that's a good alternative for a lot of customers as well. If they're on the platform where they want to do the ideation, the business case, the projects, and do the end-to-end solution there, and then the whole experience can be encapsulated within Teams. So it's pretty game changing.
Yeah. And then with Project for the Web, you have your Kanban card interface. So you can assign someone a task, and then they can move it along just like they would in Planner. And it's a co-authorable schedule, so we can check that box. What's going to be nice in the future is where Microsoft's kind of connecting some dots here, and it can't really happen soon enough, is when those project tasks inside Project for the Web become part of the task ecosystem, the to-do ecosystem within Office 365, because then the alerts will be automatic. People have, on their to-do list, and it'll kind of bring it all together in a better way. Right now, we can build those alerts in with Power Automate, but we have to do extra work to do that.
Yep, absolutely.
So then when you get into what are the other aspects of a project portfolio management system that always come up, that always are a pain point, and you always look at resource management. It's still a huge pain point for a lot of organizations, and it really drives why people look at, I need a better way. I need to get out of Excel. It's not a feasible, viable situation.
Right. Or I need maybe have made a shift, and sometimes we've seen customers who've made that hard shift to go all agile, and so they're no longer tracking resource time and availability at any kind of. They're just kind of assigned to teams, like work teams, not Microsoft Teams, or groups, and they start to find that, hey, I do need some of that granularity and that information, and
Right.
that's where you start to look at things like. Again, one of our tenets of what we do is working in lockstep with the Microsoft vision of allowing people to work the way they want to work, the work management freedom, but get the results they need. Which, and we focus a lot on agility, visibility, and control. Which is a long way to say people could be over here working in an agile solution. Maybe they still need a component that uses a PPM solution, and you need to integrate that data. And that's where we use things like TaskTop to bring that data together and make sure that people can get both what they need, which is kind of give them the freedom to do the dev over here in the way they want to work, but still be able to understand a little bit of that resource loading. You may lose a little granularity when you're doing it that way versus more of a traditional PPM load, but you still have maybe your core compliance that you have to do. We work with a lot of regulated industries, right? Financial services, government, healthcare. And there's compliance and regulations around some of the what are they doing, what are the returns they're getting on these projects, and they need some of that resourcing stuff like you started to talk about for that.
Yeah, so this is a tough one. I mean, this is not something that we can just say, well, yeah, if you need resource management, here you go, because we're in a little bit of a situation here with the resource management. So Project Online PWA obviously has resource management capabilities. But the project for the web product and the team's collaboration centric solution that we've been painting really just allows you to assign people to tasks.
Right.
And there's some basic Power BI reporting about who's assigned to what and when does it start and when does it stop. And what does that really mean for their workload, but it doesn't go so far as to do capacity planning or staffing or anything like that. So this is where you may be back in a Project Online scenario if you have robust resource management needs, at least for the time being.
Yeah.
Until there's something. Now we're hearing, we keep hearing that Microsoft's going to start doing things like leveraging the resource management capabilities of Dynamics, which are also built on the Dataverse.
Right. The Universal Resource Scheduler. Yeah, the URS.
Yeah, the URS, which are also built on the Dataverse to start augmenting that or pull that into the project for the web tool in some way. But we don't really know when that's happening.
Right. Yep, absolutely. But the key is that we can and are helping customers work more collaboratively with a central and unified Teams work and project management experience today, and we still can help solve those problems. There's a bit of an evolution that's going on. There always has been, always will be, but it's an interesting place to be right now.
It is. So Mike, I think the bottom line is, I think we can help if you're thinking about Teams for project management and you want to go that direction to call it collaborative project and work management, and you want to do a team centric. There's some decisions that have to be made. There's some conversations that you have to understand what your needs and challenges are, what your priorities are. But we think it's a great idea. We think that doing project management and work management in Teams is probably the future of where we're going on the platform. And we can help you make these decisions and light up certain scenarios for you. Do it gradually. So perhaps you want to get started with just project creation, intake, and project approval, to provisioning a Teams channel with your project schedule in it, risk and issue management, document storage and management. And then you want to get into some more really creative things like, I want to start capturing categorization of my projects. I want to centralize the data management of my projects. We can help with all that in Teams by augmenting the Teams project for the web solution with Power Apps and Power Platform, Power Automate, and Power BI, and really build around it. make it more complete.
Yeah, absolutely. And from day one, what you're going to get, because you have that full suite that you're talking about, is for those listening, you're going to get a lot more visibility from day one. So you're going to get the collaborative aspects that we keep talking about, but you're also going to get, mentioned Power BI. We're going to light up, and you're going to see some dashboards. Some of them are some out of the box capabilities, and then we can augment those with additional reporting as you continue to mature along your journey a little bit. And that is really the central piece of work and project management, is visualizing where things are. You talked about having everything in a common area. That's one thing. The second piece is, can you see it and make it actionable, right? And that's available from day one with these types of solutions too, because the integrated Power platform that includes Power BI.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think several versions ago, Mike, when we were in 2007 and 2010 project server implementation, so the visualization was always a challenge. It was centralized, but having to write, how do you see it, and the specialization that it took to write the reporting and to have someone do it for you was an impediment to a lot of people being able to visualize the data.
Yeah, and getting the data right is always going to be a challenge, but the ability to visualize it right away once the data is where it needs to be. Some of it's just right out of the box with the applications. Some of it, if you need to tweak it a certain way, you've got to move that data into a way that you can then visualize it. One of the points I'd like to make here, though, is for those who might be listening and they've got different standards for reporting platforms, so they may have Business Objects or Tableau or one of the others that are out there. Most of our customers have multiple reporting platforms and business intelligence platforms. What we've seen in a trend over the last couple of years is people who are on the Microsoft platform, they may have, we have, again, a lot of the other platforms that folks are using this, saying, well, we can't do our display, our reporting for the project management or the Teams for work management solution you have in Power BI, because this is our standard.
Right.
What tends to happen is they go, well, how much is that? And in certain cases, they're on an ESKU, and it's like, well, you already have the license. They're like, really? And I can get this reporting. So it becomes, it's not an or situation. It oftentimes becomes an and situation. If that's not the corporate standard for your high level reporting, it doesn't matter. You still could use Power BI potentially for your work and project management solution to get things done at that level, and still be feeding that data over to your Tableau or your business objects. And we work with that every day with our customers. And it becomes, and in certain cases you have to go a little further, and you have to build a data store. There's a product called Data Store that allows you to build an Azure SQL engine right out of things like Project, but that just enables this reporting even more.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I love that data store product. Edison 365 built an awesome product. It really does help folks with the different reporting tools that you said, but not only that, with data historic reporting and auditing of what changed when. A lot of folks are finding that if they're going to try to build that themselves, it's going to take an enormous amount of time to do that. It's already done for you.
Yeah, we have a customer who's going through a major, pandemic-related enterprise organization reorg, and part of doing that is requiring their whole resource breakdown structure and everything is completely re-architected. So to do that requires some extracts, and they're actually using business objects and Tableau to surface that information. So they're re-architecting their entire organizational structure. And they already had data store in place, and the ability to pull this data out, like you mentioned, archive data and different types of extracts, it was key to have that already there. If you didn't have the data store and that SQL engine, it would require a lot more work to get that done. So it's a foundation for that project.
So a couple of other things just of note. It seems like figuring out what the right recipe for your company or your organization is with Teams and collaborative work management is not always the same answer for everybody. And it seems like we're spending a lot of time trying to talk to folks about what is the right sauce for you in Teams. What do you need to do as far as your project management journey? And that seems like it's taking more time up front in these conversations, because it's not like, well, here's this thing over here. And from a sales director perspective, it's a little bit more challenging, frankly, to have these conversations. So what we're coming up with is ways that we can come up with some low cost, limited investment assessments, where we can basically come in and talk to you, do requirements, talk to you about how you want to do project management in teams, and come up with the right solution for you as more of a, frankly, it's more of a consulting activity than it has been in the past. Mm-hmm. And it's very situational.
Yeah, it depends on how, and we can present the different work options and project management options are available from the platform, but also your organization, the customer's organization, will have their own way and governance and things that they're looking at from Teams perspective. So how do you plug those things together? And that's where this type of offering can help provide that clarity before they go make a lot of investment of time and money.
Right. And another thing is that, like, when it starts out like more organically in Teams, with people creating channels and wanting to do project management in Teams, it can be kind of a mess. I mean, it can create kind of a mess. You've got some folks have even locked it down so you can't create new teams and channels. There may be some inconsistency to it. The data may not be centralized the way you want it to be.
Right.
So our Teams work management app helps with that.
Absolutely.
And it basically centralizes the new project creation into a common form, puts it through your workflow using Power Automate, and provisions the channel and all of the appropriate tabs depending on what project management in Teams means to you. Is it project for the web, issue risk management, reporting? Are there some other things you want in there? And does it in a consistent way. Right. That adheres to your governance, and it's not going to create a big mess inside of Teams with a bunch of different channels for God knows what. All your documents are going to be centralized in the right places. You can report on the risks and the issues, and then maybe change requests that are happening in a central way. And It pulls it all together. So that's what we've created in order to help folks with this journey, and we usually include it as part of the discussion.
Yep, absolutely. And people are finding a lot of value in it.
Oh, for sure.
It's very exciting.
So I have a feeling we'll be talking about this again soon, Mike.
I think so. I think this is a growing conversation.
It sure is. Among a lot of other things we talk to customers about, this particular topic seems to be gaining a lot of momentum and attention, given the fact that people are needing to collaborate remotely more and more often. And so it's been exciting. It's been an evolution of kind of the way I've seen the space evolving as well. And it really moved us forward, I think, maybe a year or two at least.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, the situation that's happened is pushed the adoption of these tools ahead by a couple of years, and people in their transformation journeys, and we see that a lot with our customers, and in many ways that is good, because it's actually creating these efficiencies that weren't there before, and it creates these opportunities for further efficiencies to go deeper in these areas that we're talking about.
Yeah, and it's in the right direction too, because the Dataverse and the Power Platform, which is what we're basically using to augment and centralize the data in this scenario, is a huge area of investment for Microsoft, and something that we're going to reap the benefits of in both the short and long term if our project management data and our project collaboration and activities are happening there.
Right. Yeah, there's and that's getting a little bit ahead, but there's going to be some really interesting things when we have this conversation a lot about what we're going to be able to do is that data set within customer organizations grows. More things in the project management space that go beyond just consolidating data, like we talked about at the beginning of this call, to actually moving. If you think about project management, the way that people do project and work management, using whatever the tool is, right? If it's Planner, Project for the Web, Project Online, even competing cloud tools, it's really an abstraction of the work. You're putting it somewhere else, and it's hopefully reflects to some degree of accuracy what people are actually doing, right? more and more, when you get this information into the Dataverse, you're going to be able to mine that information and be able to come back with, using these tools, reporting, and AI, you're going to be able to come back with some things like predictive analytics, some natural language analysis, some things that are going to be able to say, this is what we think is going on, or what this is telling us. Do you agree? And if you do, then this is this is the kind of action you might want to take. And even further down the road, there may even be some predictive or suggested actions and things that would come out of it. So it's kind of a dawning of a new age of work and project management, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Microsoft PPM and project management solutions have always been a platform discussion, and that's purposeful. This really doubles down on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, the platform is the PPM solution.
Right.
And so it's not about like whether or not the product that you're looking at has AI capabilities.
Right. It's the platform.
It's the platform because it's already baked in. It
already has all those things, right? So
right.
I think most customers who are solidly invested in the 365, M365, O365 platform, and everything that means, with, like we talked about, the Power Platform, Azure, the Dataverse, they're going to start to see that more and more when they make these enterprise decisions of where to go. Is that it makes a lot more sense to stay in an ecosystem, a technical ecosystem and a partner ecosystem that's you're gonna get the maximum value for your lowest investment. And that's ultimately what customers want out of these types of tools.
So you can count on Innovative E to be there to fill in the blanks, connect the dots on this stuff, figure out what the right recipe for you to do collaborative project and work management in teams is. And just give you our educated opinion about where we think that you should take the products, what's the right mix for you, how do you get started. We're going to be here for you for this journey, and I have a feeling, Mike, that we're going to make a bit of a career out of it.
Extend the career. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Brian. Well, anything of interest beyond project management to talk about today? Weather's getting a little bit better.
There is one thing, Mike, and it's a conversation that we're having with another customer. It's not really project related at all.
What's that?
We're doing more and more on the Power Platform with Power Apps and Power Automate. And we have a really exciting customer that wants to build 6 Power Apps to run their business.
Right.
And to have the logic built in to those Power Apps that basically creates their differentiating story in the industry, and we're helping
special
them
sauce.
Do that. Yeah. So we're building the sauce, and we've gone through the effort now of analyzing what those 6 apps are going to do, what the roadmap is for them, and we're about to get started on that journey. And so I'm just kind of excited that Innovative E is having those kind of conversations with customers. If you're out there and you're thinking, Power Platform, I'm not sure how to get started, but it sounds like it's really promising, I think we can help you.
Yeah, it's almost like we could have a section called "Did You Know?" Innovative E. So we've done a lot of that kind of work with customers, but we're mostly known for the project work management solutions that we do. But in many cases, we get involved with, those solutions are completely different solutions. In the case of the one you're talking about, this customer came to us and they have, a very specific way they approach their business, and they have their intellectual property around it and their processes, and they had tried to do some things with Power App. And a nice byproduct of all of our investment over the last couple of years with Microsoft shifting more towards the Power Platform is we were able to help them assess where they were and then start building into the future their special sauce into these apps, which will continue to help them with their market differentiation, which is at the end of the day is really a lot of fun, and it makes a big difference for the customer, right? I mean, they can be more effective and more efficient, which is what we're all about. But it's not, it goes beyond project and work management. It's how they're engaged with their customers and their, like I said, market differentiation, which is a lot of fun. And we do that with even outside of Power Platform. We do that with the more traditional things too. We have some pretty large customers we've worked with where we helped extend their products We do a lot of software development. A lot of people don't know that about us, right? Did you know? We have dozens of developers who are working on enterprise products for customers and public-facing products that help them with their differentiation and their market capabilities. So that piece of the business is a lot of fun too.
Yeah, it is. So, that about wraps it up, I think, Mike. Good conversation. And one I think that's going to be a recurring theme. So I think that'll do it.
All right. Until next time.
Are you done yet?
Never done, Brian.
The Work and Project Management podcast from Innovative E. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Bye.